Hello and welcome. I'm Irina, if we haven't already met, and I've been doing these videos live lately, especially this one. I want to talk about shame and language learning. And I could not imagine myself recording, re-recording, and editing a video whose topic was shame. So it's going to be live or nothing, basically. But I wanted to talk about shame today because I think that there was just something pulling at me quite persistently this morning and all day and over the weekend that this is a topic that needs to be talked about more. And I'm seeing threads of shame, especially in discussions related to Finnish language, learning Finnish, getting ahead in Finnish, speaking well enough. And also, I've just been getting more curious about the experience of shame within myself and the way that I've been observing myself react to it. So, just before I get into a little bit more about this, and I don't honestly know like where it's going to go, so it's going to be interesting to see where this discussion takes us. But let me just say that the importance of talking about shame, I think, is that its presence signals something about our state of mind and our perceptions and our thinking. And it means that we're not on our A game. It means that in that precise moment, we don't necessarily have, I say this like, I'm not sure if this is true, but let's see. We don't necessarily have access to our highest faculties, to seeing like the entire pie, or maybe looking at this much and it's like the shittiest this. Okay. So for my fellow Harry Potter fans out there, it's like the Dementors are like coming down. And it's interesting to notice because in these moments, we don't have the highest perceptions of our abilities, or like decision making, right? If we're coming out of a space of Dementors, which for non-Harry Potter fans are these are they demons? I don't, anyway, these creatures that basically like suck the soul out of you or the life out of you. So when they're around, you just feel this like pressure and this kind of depression or just this weight, right? And there's an actual, in the books, there's like an actual fog that rolls in, or I don't know. Anyway, and so anyway, this feeling of shame, I think, is really, really prevalent. And one interesting aspect about shame that I've observed and kind of getting curious about my own experience of shame is that it feels deeply personal. It's like it's not something you would want to share with anyone, or that you would like risk exposing, right? It's something you would want to guard and protect. And it feels like for sure nobody else in the world has ever felt this before. And this is exactly why I want to talk about it, because I think our experiences just on a daily basis, whether we're learning or doing anything else, they fluctuate. They go up and down. We have like, oh, this was really fun, beautiful, whatever. And then it goes down, right? And shame is like somewhere around this bottom area. So when we do get into that experiences, which for some will be much more prevalent in learning than for others. So while some people might experience it as a bleep on the radar and be like, oh, that was weird, whatever, and just keep going, others will just stay in that shame space. And I don't know why this happens. It just sometimes happens, and it might happen in different areas of our lives. But I wanted to give voice to this experience, and not to say like this is what you need to do, but to see if by naming it, by giving voice to it, we can become more aware of it. Because ultimately, I've come at shame in a couple. I experienced this morning, so it's very fresh. But I've come at it from different points of view. Sometimes where I'm just avoiding something repeatedly, and then wondering like, what am I doing? It's maybe the behavior that's cluing me into something, and then asking myself from within, being like, what is going on, and seeing shame come up as the response. So it's not always that we feel the dependent has come down. Sometimes it's just like procrastination, self-sabotage, different symptoms. And so from that space, I think we are able to see that there's pain, right? There is an internal experience of pain that we're running away from, and it could just look very like a normal thing that we're doing. And so in that sense, I don't think that it's helpful to just say, okay, well, when this happens, you will do this, right? A prescription, which I just recently realized is written prescription. So it's basically something that is scripted in advance, pre-scripted. And really, I think that the most helpful response to shame is awareness, as much as is possible in the moment. So I feel very, very strongly about allowing each and every person who is learning language to do so in their own unique way, because so many times we set up a goal and then we either follow through or we don't, or we maybe do it but it doesn't quite lead to the result that we were hoping for. And oftentimes we can get into a shame spiral about that. So I find that when we're able to just observe our experiences, observe the highs, observe the lows, observe the different aspects of it, including the valleys, we're able to just let things pass. So I'm just thinking, like, if you click on this video and maybe you're wondering, okay, so there's this experience of shame keeps coming up in language learning. I guess what I would want you to know in this moment is that when you do feel that coming on, that it will pass, first of all. And I don't know when, I don't know how, it just does. And also that from that space, if you clue into the fact that it might be the shame talking, that bottom part of the area, then that's not the best time to make decisions about your abilities or necessarily about your next steps. But it can be a time to just notice that there's pain, irrespective of how you decide to act, whether to bring awareness to it or not. Just knowing that that is part of the experience and that it passes, I think is so helpful, because we need certain levels of cognition when we're learning. We need to be in specific states of mind, at least part of the time. And if we dig into the shame and we stay there, it's a really, really challenging place from which to try to learn. And so I want you to know this so that you can set up your learning in a way that also is sensitive and compassionate to your needs in the moment. And so irrespective of what the schedule or the to-do list says, if this is something that you keep coming up against, or oftentimes when we're saying stuff like, oh, I should be further along, or I don't know enough, or these are like very subtle hints of that, right? And so So just noticing even in little moments that might not be like a full blown valley, but sometimes going in that direction. I think it's just important to have that awareness of, you know, how we're feeling in that moment, and realizing that we might be seeing this much of this much possibility, and making whatever um, decisions to do or not to do accordingly, knowing it doesn't have to be perfect, but just having that awareness, just giving voice to the experience of shame, I think is really important, because we put so much emphasis on the doing and not so much on like, okay, but if I'm doing from a place of seeing this versus this, um, and to add to that, sometimes in some areas there will be a lot of this, and that's okay too. So I just wanted to acknowledge this experience. I just wanted to give voice to it, because, well, frankly, I haven't really heard anybody talking about it. And I think that so many of us can be so good at beating ourselves up. And that my hope is that we all together learn to be just a little bit kinder, just a little bit more attentive to our internal experience of learning, so that we can continue to move forward, not just with the end result, the product of speech or the language itself, but also allowing the experience to teach us more about ourselves, and how we can be a better cheerleader for ourselves and our efforts. And when we acknowledge this part, we're also able to acknowledge, the circumstances in which we are doing things. So that was what I wanted to talk about today. And yeah, just giving voice, just being patient with ourselves and giving voice to the experience, and remembering that it does pass. We don't just stay in that place. So just getting curious about the process can be a really big relief if we've never had language. And I don't mean language learning, I mean like literal, like conceptual language, or to bring awareness to this. Maybe language is not the thing that we need, it's more just bodily awareness, but either way. So thank you so much for watching, and I wish you all the best on your journey.